So the learning goes on and on and on. I had a student, and this really showed me something different and well. A guy, very first tower experience I ran, weekend workshop, this guy comes along, Russian, ex-pilot, and he was basically, he was telling me during the weekend workshop that he was piloting this plane, took off, commercial jet, and he swore that something got in the flight path like a UFO, the plane diverted, and the plane basically crashed on a mountainside. And he was convinced that it was something like a UFO that got into the way and forced this in some way. And he said people died. And he said basically they couldn't find the black boxes for ages. And so he was being brought up on criminal charges because they couldn't match up any data, because they didn't have any data because the boxes were missing. And he said he then had this dream. And he was being shown where the boxes were. And he went to the authorities and he told them, look, I'm sure I can help you find. And they actually found the boxes. And he was cleared of this. And he was telling me all about this. Like the meditation we did earlier, we did a similar meditation. And I had the music cranked right up, and I was just observing people and their energy states. And he was sitting in the middle of the couch over here, crying his eyes out, just bawling like a baby, all this energy. And I asked him about it afterwards, and he said, I always practice this unconditional love meditation. And he says, I get quite emotional. I said, yeah, you were pretty emotional. And so anyhow, he didn't have an out-of-body experience here at the weekend. A couple weeks went by, no experiences to report to me. About the third week or so, or whatever it was, he sends me an email. It starts off, I've just returned from an experience that I had to share with somebody, and you're the first person I want to share this with. And he's writing away in his broken English, and it's a mess. It's a real mess, this writing. But I'm trying to interpret as best I can. And he basically said, I suddenly felt this energy and suddenly had all this white sort of light around me. And he said all of these hands were reaching up to me. He said sort of hands with 5 fingers reaching to me. Hands with 3 fingers reaching to me. Hands with 1 finger reaching to me. And he said suddenly he chose a hand and they took him and pulled him away from his body. I was like, whoa, that's cool. I know what that's like. And he said everything else disappeared, and he could just feel this sort of lifting, and he was motion, and seemed like galaxies, and everything was going zipping past. And he said he arrived to a point where he said the energy of this dimension, the energy of this place, he said he'd never felt anything like it ever here. He said it was a type of love that a human just can't imagine. And he said he suddenly saw this portal, like a gateway to another, even higher reality. And he went over towards the portal, and he stood at the portal, and he said the energy that was leaching down out, or leaking out of that realm, this little crossover between these levels. He said the energy that he was feeling was that much more magnified than what he was experiencing there. And he had this instant thought, if I go through this portal, I am not going back to my body. I'm not going back. And he said the moment he had that thought, these 2 beams of light swept down from inside that realm down to the portal and said to him, you can't come through. It is not your time. Now what he's starting to touch on is a type of environment which blows the doors off these Christian and other big religious style temporary stopover heavens. He's talking about something well beyond the form-based realities that we know of as out-of-body explorers predominantly. And they reminded him, he said, I was directed back to my body, but not through force. He said they started to show me things that I chose myself before I came into this body. He said, I had these things mapped out about things I was to do still. He says, I'm in my 60s, Todd. He said, what kind of life, what can I still do for humanity? But they showed me what I could do, and they showed me what I chose I could do before coming here. And they said, you still have a purpose down there. He said, no force. He came back on his own because he saw with his own eyes the potential that he still had within this lifetime. So he's ending off this experience, and he says, I'm really sorry for the choppiness and the jumbleness of this message, but I can't stop crying. And God, I know exactly how he feels. So I want to direct your attention back to something, a challenge I directed you to earlier today, sustaining from watching TV for 6 weeks. Digest some of what I talked about earlier, just now, leading up to this moment of this man's experience. This is powerful stuff. Wipes the floor with television. You can't make this stuff up. This is seriously inspiring stuff. And this is just touching the proverbial tip of the iceberg. The things that I know about this is nothing. Each experience I have humbles me that much more. I know nothing. I know what I know, and I know no more. We haven't even touched on the bigger reality, what lies beyond this human hologram. I've had some encounter with that. So has people like Monroe, William Buellman, probably Robert Bruce, another explorer of consciousness. Jurgen has had a few experiences with ET types or non-human intelligences. I was dogged for a few years by experiences with a particular iconish type alien figure. And the first one started in this, I'll tell you what, this completely and utterly for about a year traumatized me. Really, really traumatized me.